Llueve, llueve, caen y caen las gotas del cielo. Llueve, llueve, como te quiero, mi amor. My mother wrote this lullaby. She's here. My mother wrote this lullaby. She would sing this to my sister, who's also here, my brother, to me, as she rocked us to rest in her arms. Sometimes she still does. My mother, mujer migrante, always moving, always strong. My mother, born in Argentina, daughter of an Italian immigrant who fled Italy after seeing his entire family put in concentration camps during World War II. My mother does not speak Italian. See, those are lands and stories her father wished to forget on new Latin American soil. He married an Argentine woman and they had my mother. Migration is deep in their blood, deep in my mother's, deep in mine. My mother, lover of dance, who in her mid-20s went to live in Salvador de Bahia, Brazil, with her boyfriend at the time, the young man later to become my father. Brazil, where she learned to samba. Brazil, where my mother learned a word she would decades later teach her children, a word with no English or Spanish translation, really, saudade, no translation, but it's something encompassing a deep and embodied feeling of missing. Brazil, where she learned the phrase I've learned time and time again from her mouth, tudo vai dar certo, everything's gonna be all right. My mother, mother of three, who in her mid-30s decided to make the bravest choice a mother can make, to pick up your life, leave behind your support networks, put a new dialect in your tongue and a new culture in your step, a decision to move to the city of angels, Los Angeles, for she refused to have her children live in the streets of Buenos Aires the way she had. I have the stories of migration running deep, so deep in my veins, you'd think that's what keeps the blood streaming. Buenos Aires, born in Buenos Aires, land of fútbol sagrado, melancholic compositions, romantically political literature, Plaza de Mayo, where grandmothers gather to this day to find their grandchildren, children stolen from los desaparecidos, the young people murdered for speaking out against the dictatorship. Buenos Aires, where yes, we say pollo instead of pollo. Yes, we say pollo loco. Land of chimichurri, facturas, and yes, asaditos, Buenos Aires. You like asadito and chimichurri? You like this? Yeah. I, at age 7, wore my favorite sparkly Barbie sweatshirt, Chiquitita's tape in my sister's Walkman. I boarded down a long plane. I had never been on such a thing. And after floating through the clouds, I landed in the US. My mother bundled with anxiety, but unbelievably powerful and strong. I didn't know what it meant to be an immigrant. I didn't know what it would mean to be undocumented in this country. I knew there was a something about our family that I was not supposed to mention or ever discuss to keep us safe. Safe from what? From who? I didn't know. I don't think my mother ever fully explained with words because after all, how do you explain to a child, to anyone, what deportations are, how a life can be illegal? How? A year into being here in the US, I had quickly adapted to my life here. I knew the language, I knew the games to play during recess, I knew what the Spice Girls were. A year into being here, my mother sat the family down. She was holding her heart in her throat and in her hands. I could see it. She said, El tío Memo se está muriendo. My uncle was ill and dying. Well, are we going back home to be with him? We all asked. We can't, she said. We asked why. She couldn't respond through her heartbreak. I learned then, 8 years old, what it meant to be undocumented. I, very much my mother's daughter, have used music and dance to get me through, to move with the joys and the pains of life. I, like my mother, love the ocean. See, we go to the water to soothe these diasporic blues, to fill ourselves with exactly what separates us. Miles and sea, miles and sea, miles and sea, so much miles and sea. I don't know when I noticed it. It came on slow but strong. Little by little, more and more, I began to feel fragmented. They say the immigrant narrative is one of push and pull, ni de acá, ni de allá, neither here nor there. The home you never left will never be home, but neither will this one, though you've been here for decades. And I kept swallowing the secret. Small I, seeing small media call my people, my family, me, criminals, asking why we didn't get in line. My young voice wanted so badly to scream, there is no fucking line. If there was, we would have gotten in it. See, in their lifetime, an immigrant hears the following questions 700,656 times or so. Oh, you're from Argentina, so why did your family migrate? And usually we respond, we came here for a better life. What we don't say because it would take too long. What we don't say because we can't stand to have to be the teacher of world history every fucking day is this. Why are you not asking why people have to migrate to begin with? Right? We want to answer that all of this is so deeply linked to centuries of colonization, white supremacy, capitalist greed, stolen lives turned into slavery, and recently American-funded civil wars, coups, complete destruction of agriculture, economies, education systems. We want to answer, believe me, if we could live this land to the natives it belongs to, if we could live with dignity in our lands and never had left, we would have. But instead, often we say, we came here for a better life. Because, like I said, I can't stand to be everyone's teacher, although 700,656 times, the weight of doing so for decades has exhausted me. It's been killing me. So fragmented, I began to feel by the empty questions, by the layered and complex answers, by the news, by families I know being separated by deportations, by the fear in my parents' eyes of having the same happen to ours. And I tried to be whole. I tried my hardest. But how? Tell me. How do you stay whole when your very blood is stretched miles away from you? So far you can't touch them. So far you can't see them. So far you can't grow with them, die with them. Miles and sea, miles and sea, miles and sea. You learn to celebrate weddings, graduations, births from afar. You learn to mourn from afar. You learn, you're forced to, or maybe you just adapt. And all the while you create a life here. What else can you do? With these borders and the status, they keep telling me what I can and can't do. In my teenage years, I learned that this status will affect whether I can see a doctor, whether I can attend colleges I've been admitted to, whether I can work, drive, vote, board planes. These borders, I begin to feel them on my skin and in my mind, digesting in my organs and unshakable from my tongue. I consume them, internalize them. I pray to God I had not become them, but sometimes maybe I had. This body, this mind, this spirit, it doesn't function, it doesn't breathe with these borders, with this sensation of being fragmented. Sometimes I wake up and I can't breathe with this is my reality. And then I look in the name of my hometown, Buenos Aires, the good air, and I breathe, and I invite you to do the same as well. Yeah. Slowly recalling that everything is cyclical, everything is temporary. Now grown, and my mom not always beside me, I rock myself to sleep, singing a lullaby I wrote. It goes, this is temporary, though it seems everlasting. I know this too will transform, and it too will let go once I learn what I was here for. Somehow, I've always known this. Don't ask me how, I just do. Someday, I know I'll have a daughter. And I will teach her to be proud of the migration stories, deep, strong rivers in her blood. I will tell, and most importantly, I will show her the ways to become whole again and again and again. Mija, es así. Mujeres migrantes, migrant women, we organize strategically, radically, compassionately. We start with our community, our people, the issues we are at the forefront of, and we work there, build there. We connect with the youth there, planting seeds of revolution and self-love. We read books written, typed, created by women like us. We begin to feel attuned to whether we want to share our stories or not, and with whom we share them. We commit to feeling what we have to feel. We cry and laugh and make sure there's always time to play and be silly. We dance, reclaiming curves and hips, moving together until we feel all of it leaving through our sweat. We feed ourselves the food our body needs, taking dripping bites of fruit as juicy as our lips. We give and receive hugs, but the real ones, you know, the good ones, the ones that feed your soul. And we learn of plant medicine, bringing new connotation to brujeria. We get our hands dirty in the soil and the sea and the trees. We make love and create it. We learn to rest. We learn we can be vulnerable and powerful, water and fire, because yes, we are that complex, and yes, that is part of our magic. We live by our values, love in our values, and commit to this process for life. Not just a phase, not just a post, for life, for lifetimes, for beyond the progress we may not see in our lifetime. And I'll say that again, for beyond the progress we may or may not see in our lifetime. And this is how. It is a process, one cyclical, not linear. This is how you do the work over and over and over again until you fall in love with yourself, until you look in the mirror and see no enemy. Until one day you look in the mirror and you see the very thing that once made you feel fragmented is the very thing that keeps you whole. See, I have migration running deep, deep in my veins, and it keeps me whole. Mi mamá me enseñó, my mother taught me, we act and live from this place of wholeness. We pass that on. Past, present, future, hand in hand, 3 generations will go to the ocean where, like we've always done, we will soothe our diasporic blues. Miles and sea, miles and sea, miles and sea, entirely whole. The 3 of us will rest in my mother's lullaby. Llueve, llueve, caen y caen las gotas del cielo. Llueve, llueve, como te quiero, mi